Bien, creo que podemos ir comenzando, esperando que las demás personas se vayan uniendo en el transcurso de la sesión. Bienvenidos todos, muchas gracias por su tiempo y por estar presentes en este lanzamiento de la estrategia Bonsucro. Para comenzar, me gustaría presentarme. Soy Benjamín Sandoval, coordinador de Bonsucro para México. En esta llamada nos acompaña nuestra CEO, Danielle Morley, quien hará la presentación. Nuestro director para América Latina, nuestro director regional, Miguel Hernández. Nicolás Viart, nuestro gerente de estándares e innovación, y mi colega Livia Ignacio, coordinadora de Bonsucro en Brasil. Les voy a leer algunas de las reglas para la sesión y posteriormente a eso daremos inicio con la presentación. Esta sesión será grabada, como lo pueden ver cuando ingresaron. Posteriormente compartiremos las diapositivas y la grabación para que ustedes puedan revisarlo si tienen el interés. En caso de tener alguna pregunta, por favor utilicen la función de preguntas y respuestas que tiene el programa Zoom. Daremos respuesta al final de la presentación, así que por favor tengan un poco de paciencia para obtener la respuesta. Y por último, esta sesión será en inglés. Así que tenemos servicio de traducción simultánea, si es que lo requieren, el cual pueden acceder dando clic en el icono que dice interpretación en la parte baja de su pantalla de Zoom. Así que, bueno, dicho lo anterior, me gustaría ceder la palabra a Danielle. Danielle, please, go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Hello, buenos dias. How is everybody today? Thank you for joining me for the launch of our Bonsucro strategy 2021-2026. I'm going to be spending the next 40 minutes taking you through key highlights, and then, as Benjamin said, there will be time at the end for questions. I will try to speak nice and slowly for the translation as well. So, how did we develop our new strategy? Well, it has not been a top-down process. We developed our strategy very collaboratively, and it was an iterative process of discussions with the key stakeholders, external stakeholders, our members, our staff, our members' council. We have a technical advisory board, and we had a very engaged board of directors, the Bonsucro board of directors. Were engaged in the process from start to end. I led the process supported by our consultants change agency, and it took us many months and lots of virtual meetings to get it right. And now I think that we have a strategy to be proud of, and I'm looking forward to hearing your response to what we've presented today. Now, after this session, you will be emailed some links where you can download the strategic plan. We have a long version, the full version, and we have a shorter version that's been translated into a number of languages, and of course, including into Spanish. So we started the process with our baseline analysis. Where are we now? And I will summarize the conclusions of the baseline for you. We concluded that Bonsucro had made really good progress over the last strategy period. We have grown our members, we've strengthened our systems, and we've achieved many of our goals. And we are very proud that globally, 5% of all sugarcane land is now certified to the Bonsucro standard. We have certified mills in 19 countries, including in the largest sugarcane origins in the Americas and in the Asia Pacific region. And we have a growing pool of committed buyers. Collectively, they represent at least 20% of the global demand for sugar. And we also have a large number, not a large, but a growing number of buyers in the newer market sectors, biopackaging and biomaterials, as well as the alcohol rum sectors. So this reach, this global reach, gives us a really strong foundation to go further and address those complex systemic issues that certification alone cannot resolve. On the environmental side, our baseline research showed us that certification, for example, reduces greenhouse gas emissions at farm level by 31% over the first 4 years of certification, and at the mill level by 20%. We also know there is continuing reductions in water use, fertilizer use, and herbicide use, for example. And we contributed data for an independent piece of science which modeled what would happen if the whole world adopted the Bonsucro production standard, and indicated that it would halve the greenhouse gas emissions from sugarcane production, it would reduce water consumption by 65% and nutrient loading by 34%. Really significant achievements can be seen through the adoption of the Bonsucro standard. And on the social side, we now have a code of conduct for all of our members that commits our members to respecting human rights, and we have a strengthened system of due diligence around that. The Bonsucro production standard also demonstrates improvements on wages paid to the lowest paid workers, on average, global average of over 20% above the legal minimum wage. And we also have data to prove that there are clear improvements in occupational health and safety for workers. And then on the production and uptake metrics, we know that there has been an increased volumes of certified sugarcane on the market, certified larger number of mills, but also more hectares being grown under Bonsucro certification, which equals to an increase in the impact and the scale of impacts achieved. That Bonsucro certified sugar was at 6.2 million tonnes, and certified ethanol was at 2.7 million metric tonnes. We know that Brazil does still dominate dominate the market, producing about 75% of all the Bonsucro certified sugar, and almost all of the Bonsucro certified ethanol. But now we have this greater pool of certified mills across 19 countries. Other origins are now coming on stream and producing those certified sugarcane products. And the Bonsucro buyers, the end users, they're buying more certified Bonsucro products than ever before. Those volumes are also going up. However, the rate of supply and demand does remain the same at around 20%. And we want to help create more value for our members, particularly for the producers, and try and increase the dial in terms of market uptake. And we also know from some independent research we've done in Brazil and in India, an economic evaluation of certification, that the Bonsucro certification does pay off, that the benefits do outweigh the costs over time, but that can be variable depending upon whether it's a traditional mill or a smallholder based mill or a more modern mill. I'll come on to some of that a little bit later in the presentation. And then as part of our baseline, we looked at the positioning for the future. Bonsucro is the only sugarcane sustainability initiative that combines a set of important characteristics in one organisation. We have an exclusive focus on sugarcane. We really are the experts, together with all of you, our members. We have a very credible standard system. It's a third-party system of assurance, and we are code compliant with ISEAL, which is an umbrella organisation of all the most ambitious and credible sustainability standards, international sustainability standards in the world. We have a focus on continuous improvement. We have a global reach with local footprint, our local staff and our membership. We're multi-stakeholder, we're a multi-stakeholder membership organisation, and we have a multi-stakeholder governance system. And we have a broader role as a platform for change beyond our membership and beyond certification. We researched the global context and the material trends that are impacting Bonsucro over the coming 5 years. And we know that globally, around the world, government and societies are failing collectively. We're failing to make sufficient progress on the Sustainable Development Goals and on climate change. We considered the impact of COVID-19 and the disruption that it had or could be having on Bonsucro in the years to come. And thankfully, the global drive for sustainable supply chains is continuing and is even picking up pace across all key sectors as the private sector and as governments are mobilizing towards making better progress on achievement of those global goals and on climate change. So we feel confident that our sector, the food and drinks, the packaging sectors and the biofuel sectors are all resilient enough to the impact of COVID, and the drive for sustainability will continue. Financing sustainable growth and the transition to a decarbonised and climate resilient economy will be an overarching theme for the financial sector over the years to come. Currently, the world's spending around $1.3 trillion on sustainable development, but that is not enough, and we need to spend more money. And then on human rights and social standards, meeting at least the minimum standards on human rights and social will become increasingly important for the private sector. And for the first time, ESG issues are moving beyond reputation and supply chain resilience risks, which is where much of the incentive for action has been driven by reputational risks and supply chain resilient risks. Now companies are having to address these issues of sustainability as core commercial, financial, and legal compliance risks with the rise of new policy frameworks and regulatory frameworks in governments around the world. For example, in Europe, we have a big new piece of legislation coming out of the EU called the EU Green Deal, which is going to have far-reaching impact on supply chains beyond the European borders, and similar legislation and regulatory regimes will be emerging in other big markets, including in the US. We also looked at the production and consumption data and at the sugar and ethanol markets, and we looked at the biofuel, biomaterial, bioplastic market trends to draw conclusions for Bonsucro's positioning. And while we know that sugar will continue to be the dominant use, accounting for 75% of all sugarcane, we do expect considerable growth in those other market sectors, which presents an opportunity for sustainable sugarcane. So what does this mean for Bonsucro? Our baseline analysis, we took it together, the desk research, speaking to stakeholders and members, and we took key inputs for our strategy. We really wanted to try and make sure that this strategic plan meant that Bonsucro would be relevant and purposeful. We would be delivering value to all of our members, and we want to build an adaptable, resilient, and data-driven organisation to meet the needs of the future. So I will now introduce you to our overarching strategic framework before diving into the details on what that means. We have here our strategic wheel. This describes the main purpose and aims of Bonsucro. Our strategy is built around a new purpose statement, which is at the core of that circle in dark blue, to collectively accelerate the sustainable production and uses of sugarcane. What does this mean? It means that we want to work across the whole of the value chain, from the production to the end use. We are addressing the urgency through appealing to an acceleration, and we want to work collaboratively and collectively with members and stakeholders to address these big issues of our time. We've organised ourselves around 3 strategic aims, which align to the 3 pillars of sustainable development and define how we will contribute to the SDGs. And those 3 aims are interdependent and non-hierarchical. And for each strategic aim, we have set high-level objectives supported by targets and indicators. Implementation will be designed around those 5 strategic priorities in the light blue circle and delivered through 6 activity work streams in green. Underpinning all of that in the outer orange circle are our 4 core principles. So we have 4 new Bonsucro principles to guide our operations and decision making: collaboration, inclusivity, credibility, adaptability. Collaboration is central to our identity as a multi-stakeholder platform and to the way we work. We want to be more inclusive, to drive sector transformation, and to build more inclusive, sustainable supply chains. Credibility is important and fundamental to the way we govern our standard system. And Bonsucro is a small and medium-sized enterprise, so adaptability is part of our organisational core principles as we learn and continuously improve and grow. Moving on to the 3 strategic aims. The first one, create value in the supply chain. Really important, one we spent a long time discussing, because we know that certification does deliver many benefits to certified producers, but we also understand that the cost of certification remains a barrier for many mills and farmers. And while there is a growing commitment from buyers, there is still a gap between supply and demand, and the uptake is too low to generate a return on investment for all the certified producers in all the certified origins. So our objectives in this strategic aim are to increase the supply, but also the demand of certified sugarcane, certified sustainable sugar, ethanol, and its derivatives. Another objective is to make more inclusive and sustainable value chains, to convene impact and innovation projects, and to deliver added value to our members and to stakeholders. Our second strategic aim, to improve the environmental impact of sugarcane. We know that environmental issues are a high priority for many of our members, many of whom have very specific commitments to reducing the negative impacts of agricultural production or improving the impact of agricultural production through regenerative agriculture and water replenishment and so on. We also know that many of our members have commitments, have climate change commitments, and that the sugarcane sector needs to play a leadership role in working to meet the Paris Agreement on climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in line with those global targets. So we want to support our members to reduce greenhouse gas emissions via certification and to facilitate the wider sugarcane sector to take collective actions to address the climate emergency and to develop sectoral greenhouse gas reduction pathways in line with the Paris Agreement. We want to work on the water crisis by partnering with other organisations to address the water crisis and promote water stewardship in key origins through developing and piloting projects and plans to manage water more responsibly and equitably. And we want to work with our partners to protect biodiversity and soil health and to promote regenerative agriculture. And on the third strategic aim, strengthen human rights and decent work. there is a growing spotlight on social and labour conditions in global supply chains, particularly in agriculture. And we know that much of the world's sugarcane is grown in places with below optimal conditions for agricultural workers. The Bonsucro standard provides a framework to make a change for producers to improve, and Bonsucro certification enables our members to reduce their risks and to keep pace with market, regulatory, investor and consumer demands for sustainable supply chains. So we want to take this agenda further. We want to drive decent work and safer working conditions for farmers and workers, including the zero tolerance on forced labour and child labour that we have in our standard. We want to ensure safe recruitment for migrant labour and reduce discrimination and promote gender equality. And we want to promote fairer wages for the lowest paid people through piloting living wage projects in some key origins in partnership with willing members and other partners. So now I'm going to move to our 5 strategic priorities, what we think is really important that we act upon to deliver those strategic aims. So standards is Bonsucro's core business and will remain our core business, and we will use the next 5 years to continue to strengthen and innovate our system of third-party assurance. The new production standard will be finalized this year, and thereafter we will evolve the smallholder standard to be in line with the revised Bonsucro production standard, but we will adapt it to the realities of smallholder farming, drawing on our lessons, certifying smallholders in India, in Mexico, in Thailand, Mauritius, and so on. We want to strengthen our social auditing and assurance system, and we know we can make a bigger impact if we align and benchmark with other initiatives and standards, both on the production side, but also on the market side. But we want to focus on some bigger partnerships where we can make a bigger impact. For example, we're working in Brazil with the government and developing an MOU to start a process of alignment between Bonsucro and a government scheme called Renovo Bio. And we'll be seeking other new opportunities to grow the market demand for Bonsucro certification. We see particular potential in the emerging carbon space. In line with our principle on inclusivity and supporting growers and mills on their sustainability journey, we're going to develop a stepwise approach to certification. This will help us scale up sustainable sugarcane production within the Bonsucro system. And in recent years, we have started to invest more in impact projects, making direct investments to farmers and mills, supporting their improvement journey. We're going to build that up in this strategic period with an ambition to grow our impact funding up to $9 million over the 5-year strategy period. And this will be financed through income from our credit trading platform, as well as from additional grants. And we also want to improve our technical support and our technical offer to our members to support knowledge and continuous improvements of producers. And then as part of our commitment to create value, as I mentioned, we want to build the supply and demand for sustainable sugarcane. As well as aligning with other standards, particularly on the market side, we want to prioritize market development into new sectors. So the rum sector, the bio-based economy sectors, as well as look at the new consumer markets in middle-income countries, such as in Brazil, for example, or South Africa. And we also see good opportunities for the Bonsucro standard where we could become accepted by governments or by financial institutions as a standard that demonstrated compliance with either financial institutions' due diligence or government regulations. And again, if we manage to achieve that, we will build more market demand for Bonsucro. We have our credit trading platform, we'll develop it further. We have proof of concept, we have a good volume of trades, but we want to improve it and make a better offer, continue to make a better offer to the buyers to try and increase uptake of Bonsucro credits further. And I've spoken about our ambitions to play a more significant convening role for the sugarcane sector. So this is outside of certification. We want to build our capacities to deliver, capitalizing on our leverage as a network and our knowledge, and adding new capacities in policy and influencing, and in order that we can work together collectively, together with you, to focus on priority systemic issues where we need collective action. This means working in partnership on climate action to meet the Paris Agreement, on water stewardship, and on the improvement of social and labour conditions, specifically for heat stress, migrant labour, living wages, and gender equality. Underpinning all of this, we want to invest in promoting knowledge, best practice, and innovation, improving our monitoring and evaluation, unlocking new value from data, and undertaking more supply chain mapping, supporting the buyers, the end users, to have more visibility on their supply chain and support their suppliers with their sustainability journey. When you look at the strategic plan after this conference, you'll see there's another chapter called Making It Happen. When you have a chance to read it, this goes into further detail into how we will bring those strategic priorities to life. I won't go through that chapter now. I just wanted to highlight in the presentation the chapter headings where we talk about how we're going to do these, bring those priorities to life through certification, impact projects, membership development, market development, digitalization and data, and communications and influencing. So we have a global strategy. We need to create local impact. We are a global organisation. Our headquarters is in London and will remain in London, but we also have ambitions to grow our regional capacity in the key origins, and particularly in the Americas and Asia Pacific. Our work in each key origin will be consistent with the global strategy and priorities, optimized to make the best impact at the national level. And we also don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We have limited resources and we want to focus on origins where we can make the most impact and where we already have a good footprint and a good foundation. In Mexico, we have we'll be doing more discussions with our stakeholders to develop our operating plans. But here we've just highlighted a few provisional objectives for Mexico, which are to increase the number of farmers producing with more sustainable practices. We want to promote Bonsucro membership and certification. We want to support producers in Mexico to increase their technical capability and capacity to implement the Bonsucro standard. We want to convene these impact projects to create value for farmers, mills, and other stakeholders. And we want to collaborate with civil society, the private sector, and the government to improve decent work and respect for labour rights. This isn't the final list, but this is a selection of the direction and the priorities that we would have for Mexico. So our ambition is to double the size of our team by 2026. As I mentioned, to increase the capacity at the regional level, in communications, in data, in operating systems, in fundraising. And we'll do this through increasing our income from membership fees. We want to have more members to increase that level, to bring in new money from new partnerships and grants, and to increase the uptake in credit trading. So in summary, Bonsucro will continue to support our members. We will work exclusively in sugarcane. We'll be contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. We'll maintain our multi-stakeholder and global governance. And we will continue to deliver an internationally recognized, credible standard system. We will strengthen creating value. We'll strengthen our focus on climate change, water and biodiversity, the contribution to the human rights and decent work priorities, the support for smallholder farmers. We want to increase investments. We want to increase market development and uptake of Bonsucro certified products. We will continue to work on our digitalization and our monitoring and evaluation. And we want to become more visible and more active, more influential. So as you can see, we have an ambitious plan. We really want to make a bigger impact with sustainable sugarcane. And we believe in the future of Bonsucro certification and what it can deliver. And additionally, we'll be convening the sector to create this collective force for change to address some of the complex system-wide issues that we need to face together. We can't do it by ourselves. We are a network and we invite all of you on the journey with us. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your response to our strategy and continuing the conversation in the months ahead. So thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation, and we're open and available for questions.
We don't have question at this moment, so if anyone have a question or comment, please use the Q&A function on the Zoom program or the chat. What do you prefer? So we are not receiving any question or comment here. The first question is if the certification will be mandatory to commercialize, I think, certified product.
Yes. I think
yes.
If the question is, so my interpretation of the question is, a producer wants to sell certified sustainable products, then the question is, do they have to be Bonsucro certified? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, if they want to make a claim that they have Bonsucro certification, then they need to become Bonsucro certified against the standard. Is that the right interpretation?
Yeah, I think it is correct. The next question is, what are the advances working with the smallholders in Mexico?
Benjamin could answer that, perhaps.
Yeah, yes, this is on my side. Well, we have been working in one impact project to support the smallholder certification. At this time, we are understanding how we could apply the standard in Mexico. It has been a long way. Now we are in a better position. So the idea of this strategy is to create a strong relationship with smallholders associations and try to engage with the groups that want to become a member and get the certification. So we have been increasing our expertise and capacities for doing that. Nicolas has a question about it and a comment. Sorry.
No comment. No comment. Sorry.
Okay, so the next question is, what kind of projects Bonsucro is planning to implement for the emissions, for reduction emissions?
Okay, so we have a body of knowledge that we built up over the past number of years, because the Bonsucro production standard has thresholds for carbon emissions, and we have a greenhouse gas calculator that is a very rigorous calculator. So that is being revised and updated because we're currently updating our production standard. We're also updating our greenhouse gas calculator. So we have that. Then we have a data set and some data analysis to understand, which will show us, which has showing us emissions reductions over time of certified mills and all the factors, the inputs that go into that and the conditions. So then we need to understand better the conditions that have contributed to the GHG reduction. So essentially we'll be working on understanding better the source of the emissions, identifying which producers have had success in reducing GHG emissions, what factors contributed to that success, and with that information and that knowledge, we can then take that out into the wider sector. We also want to identify where we can make a big impact by working with either mill associations at the national level or with a very large value chain on identifying greenhouse gas emission footprint. And then we want to work with others to understand if this sector or this large value chain wanted to meet the Paris Agreement commitments to the 1.5 degree warming, what would that emissions reduction pathway look like? So we want to convene the sector around having those conversations, bring in the right partners, contribute our knowledge and expertise based on our data, based on our GHG calculator, to come up with credible science-based emissions reductions pathways. And then to support the producers with this knowledge that we have based on the experience today, and potentially to also bring in additional investment if needed.
Okay, following the same topic, Paula is asking if Bonsucro has a tool to demonstrate the capture of emissions.
So we have some inputs into our GHG calculator, but I think it would be interesting to review. Maybe I'm ask Nicholas if he wants to come in and talk about a little bit about the review of that GHG calculator and what inputs that captures. But we want to understand better the role of sugarcane, because sugarcane is also such an efficient photosynthesizer in its role in capturing carbon. Nicholas, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and generally, so thank you, Danielle. Indeed, we are revising our methodology for the greenhouse gas emissions. So it follows the latest publications in science on how to capture the various types of emissions into a more granular and precise estimation of the emissions. And on the question of carbon capture and the role that sugarcane might have on improving the carbon content of soils and capturing, sequestrating carbon into the soil, this is a matter we follow as well very closely. There is currently no commonly agreed methodology to report on this, but this is something that many of our members are as well very interested in. So we keep a strong eye on this, and we look at bring that knowledge into our system in the coming years, or coming months, coming years.
Okay, there are two questions about the new version of the standard. Mainly, the question is, sorry, I lost the question. When the mills will start using the new version of the standard, or yeah.
A question for Nicola.
So thank you very much for the question. So we are in the process of finalizing the standards. We have a public consultation starting next week. From that, we plan to finalize the standards by end of September. Then there will be a rollout period, and we expect the new standard to start being implemented from the end of the year or beginning of next year, with a time of adaptation for all our members. All that will be clearly detailed and explained at the time of the publication of the final version of the standard. So that will be around the end of September for the publication and the rules.
Okay. The next question is, let me check. What is the time frame for the certification of Bonsucro in fields? I think how many years does the certification is valid when you get it? You are on mute, Danielle.
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, 3 years. We have a question here about what are the plans that we have for increasing the technical capabilities in Mexico to implement the production standard of smallholders. We are now discussing a plan to build more capacities in the country. We are thinking on developing some training courses and workshops. So you will have news about it in a few weeks or months. But it is a key point for us to increase the capacity for implementing the smallholder standard. Okay, another question about the greenhouse emissions. In the case of the burning cane for the harvest, we have a solution for this problem related with emissions. You're on mute, Danielle.
Sorry. I had I couldn't hear because there's a disturbance in my background.
Yeah, we have a solution for the emissions that are coming from the burning cane.
I think Nicholas was going to answer this question.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. So through the certification, we collect the information of the hectares or area that are burnt before harvest. We don't have a precise solution set in the standard on what to do, on how to reduce cane burning. We encourage reduction of cane burning, but we are happy to help producers who want to go into the pathway to reach out to Bonsucro, who through the network have several producers and producer members who have managed and worked over the last few years to reduce the cane burning and to access to technical knowledge on how to do it efficiently and how to process in a step-by-step basis to reduce the burning of cane over time. So this is something that is happening in various countries in the world, and many of our Bonsucro certified members have already started this journey. So our role of platform is to encourage as well that sharing of information across our membership.
Okay, thanks, Nicolas. And I think the next question is again for you. What are the deadlines for a mill to achieve the certification with the current version of the standard?
So it's the same. We will publish all the rule of implementation at the end of September. They are being developed, so I can't comment as yet on it.
Okay. We have a last question, and it's about the context of Mexico, right? We know that Mexico has a different kind of field because we have a lot of smallholders and farmers organizations that maybe in other countries there are not. So the question is, what are Bonsucro planning for support the certification processes in this specific context, right? With smallholders as providers of sugarcane and mills that are not the owners of the land. So maybe Danielle, I could respond it. Sure. Well, as we said before, we are planning to increase the technical capacities. We are learning too about how we could support our members. So if you are in this kind of process, please let us know. We will be happy to understand what are your what are the challenges that you are facing and how we could bring support. I think this is the first step to understand what is happening at the field. After, as I said before, we are planning to increase the technical capacities. We are trying to align all the interest in the value chains. We think this is an issue that the only solution involves all the actors, the buyers, the mills, farmers association, and group of smallholders. So yeah, basically we are learning, but we are now in a good position to support your processes. So please let us know if you have this kind of process. Okay. The next question is, what kind of tools or parameters Bonsucro is using to measure the improvement of soil conditions?
I'm going to defer to our technical speakers, please.
I was going to answer. Thank you very much for the question. So in the draft standard that we'll be publishing next week, you will see that Bonsucro is putting an emphasis, that the standard put an emphasis on soil health and soil conditions. There is various ways that are recommended to measure and follow soil health, being carbon content, pH of the soil, so salinity and acidity of the soils, but as well coverage of the soil after harvest to maintain and facilitate the recycling of nutrients and protection against erosions. So there is never one specific measure that is applicable globally. Every measure and adaptation of those measures will have to be adapted to the local condition of the producers, and therefore the standard encourage that producers identify what the best technique available to their specificities are implemented and to the support of soil health.
Okay, we have another question about if Bonsucro has an alternative for sugarcane cutters to improve the efficiency in the cutting. I will respond that, and maybe after Nicolas could give some comments. We don't have in mind a specific tool or way to harvest the sugarcane, but we are collaborating with some initiatives that has this objective. So maybe we could share in the future some recommendations about how the manual harvesting could be done in a better way. So Nicolas, you have any comment about it?
No, exactly. I think that would be answers in the same direction, that we, after 10 years of operation sustainability in sugarcane with Bonsucro, we begin to have a wealth of knowledge and of members, partners who have been innovating in techniques to mitigate, for example, the challenge of green cutting or how to do non-burning. And this is our role, and we want to strengthen that role with a new strategy on how we can support the collection of that common knowledge and share it across our membership.
Thanks. Nicolas. And the last question that we have is, what are the sections in the calculator that are suffering significative changes? I think it is for the new standard.
Thank you. So I will take that question. There is so again, we will see that next week with the launch of the public consultation on the standard. Generally, there will be changes, but not dramatic changes. The importance for us is to continue to collect information on what is happening in the certified operations, so we can know better and collect learning from those changes, so that through that learning, we can analyze it and then share it with the stakeholders. So it's always around that objective of helping all the stakeholders, all the participants in the sustainability journey to identify solution into the sustainability challenge that we face in the sector.
Okay, thanks, Nicolas. I think we don't have more questions or comments. So please, Danielle, if you could close this session.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to be speaking directly to our Mexican members and partners. I think for my first time. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed your questions. And I really look forward, as I said, to continuing. We're at the start of a new 5-year plan. Mexico is one of our priority origins. So I'm sure you'll be seeing more of me, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Gracias, Daniel. Gracias a todos los participantes. Cualquier duda o comentario, por favor, escríbanos. Vamos a enviar, como dijimos al inicio, esta presentación y esta grabación. Así que esperamos seguir teniendo contacto con ustedes y que se sumen a esta nueva estrategia de Bonsucro. Gracias a todos y que tengan un excelente día.